this new technology, Brandon, I don't know if I know when we're ready, so I'll watch the chat. You can tell me.
Oh yeah, you're ready. Here we go.
By the way, I gave away all my books, y'all, so I hope somebody has it to flash on the screen there. Hey! Are we rocking and rolling, Brandon? Oh, hey, everybody. We're doing all this streaming technologies and whatnot. So some of y'all are joining on all kinds of different platforms, and I'm sure some of you are watching this video afterwards. You might even be listening to it on the podcast, which I'm going to say you might miss some of the visuals on this one. This is a special book club night with God's stories as told by God's children. We're going to hear all about it in just a minute. But I want to first say, it has been a busy month. We've been having all kinds of vigils and marches and things. Some of us were in DC today for Memorial Mondays. There's a vigil outside the Supreme Court 4 days in a row right now. There is morning prayer tomorrow morning, July 1st. We got a special morning prayer talking about Christian nationalism. Shoot, we knew it was July 4th around the corner. So we've got Kelly Brown Douglas, legend. And also, we've got our friends Andrew and Samuel that are real scholars on Christian nationalism. There might be a few other folks pop in that have dedicated a lot of their energy to challenging the heresy of Christian nationalism. And so we'll do it tomorrow morning, July 1st. But mostly, let's just jump right in. This is so special, y'all. We're going to hear, you see this little cloud of witnesses on the screen because the book, throw it up there, Lauren. Let's see it. I just said the highest compliment is I've given all of mine away. So I don't have it here, but this is it. God's stories, and it's beautiful illustrations all through it. So there were apparently like over 50 different contributors, scholars, theologians, storytellers, and we were able to do this as a collaboration. It was a holy project, and it wouldn't have happened with, well, I guess without all these folks, but it was especially curated by Lauren and Pete. So I want you all you to tell us, Lauren first, how this came to be, the idea, and you can flash some pictures and stuff too, whatever you want to do. But thanks everybody for being here.
Thank you so much for having us, Shane. It is such a delight to be here to talk about this book that we are so proud of, and we just hope everyone who reads it loves it as much as we do. So this book came to be because a woman named Camille, who wrote one of the stories in this book, approached us. She actually approached Jared Bias asking if he would write a story on Jonah. For a children's Bible that she was sort of had this concept of and was starting to pull together, but she didn't have a publisher. Now, Jared said, well, look, we publish books, so would you be interested? And she was, and we were. But when we came into the project, we were like, well, hang on, we do biblical scholarship. We make the best in biblical scholarship accessible for everyone. And we don't really know how to do that for kids. So we had to think really long and hard about how we were going to approach this book to do what we do best, which is bring the best in biblical scholarship to everyone, and in this instance, kids, and also honor the kid and honor their experience of the story. So what we did is we had three things that we really wanted children to know, and I am going to share my screen here. The first thing that we wanted kids to know is that the Bible contains many, many storytellers and many voices. So we wanted to reflect that in the number of people that we brought in to tell the stories, which is why we have got contributors from all over the world, from many different traditions, who do many different things. So some of them are biblical scholars, and some of them are theologians, and some of them are practitioners. And they all bring something really beautiful to their stories and a really distinct, different identity and perspective to the stories that they're telling. So we wanted the stories to sound really different from one another. We also wanted the stories to look really different from one another. So we hired a whole lot of different illustrators so that when kids are looking through these stories, they're going to see that the stories sound different from one another because they look different from one another. So that was really important to us. We wanted children to know that the Bible is full of many, many, many storytellers. And the third thing we wanted kids to know was, sorry, the second thing we wanted kids to know is that the Bible's really old. It's really, really old, and it's crazy stuff in there. So we wanted them to feel comfortable with that. Like, the Bible is old. We don't always know what to do with it, but here's how we think maybe people who first heard these stories might have heard them, or what might have been going on when these stories were first being told. So they were the first two things. The Bible has got many storytellers, and the Bible is really, really old. And then the third thing that we wanted them to know, and this is the most important, is that the Bible is a conversation that they are invited into. So we structured each story so that to really invite kids into the conversation and engage them with this. So when you're reading this book, there is a story and there is an illustration. And at the end, there are some let's talk questions at the end of every single story. And there's also a QR code taking kids and their families and their adults into more information and more ways to explore the story. And then the other thing that there is for the biblical geeks among us, like myself and most of the people on this call, there's a little sidebar scroll that gives them some context about how the story might have been received, like maybe what was happening, how people might have thought about ancient kings and storytelling and those kind of things. So those were our three sort of main points that we wanted kids to know about, and we wanted families to experience as they're reading this book. And we are so lucky today to have a number of the storytellers who contributed to this story here to talk about their stories. We're really excited about that.
Whoop, whoop. And later tonight, we're going to give away 2 copies. So we're going to give away a copy to the youngest person and the oldest person listening in tonight. So I don't know, you might not want to throw it all out there on the chats, but if you want a free book, you do. So you can tell us where you're joining from. We're kind of, I don't know, we've got a way to merge all these different chats together. So we'd love to hear where you're joining from. And also, if you've already checked out God's stories, tell us what struck you and what's been meaningful to you so far. So Pete Enns is here. Pete, you've been a big part of this, buddy. You're real smart. I feel like every time I'm with you, I get a little smarter. So, you've thought a lot about how we read the Bible, and I thought, tell us a little bit about why this whole project's been important, and whatever else you want, buddy. Yeah.
Well, yeah, I mean, how to read the Bible is obviously a huge question, but
You have 3
tying
minutes.
it to
I'm
what
just
we're
kidding.
doing here with the children's Bible, and I even think there are many different ways of putting it, but I think we read the Bible in order to see ourselves as part of God's world better. And that is a conversation with the text. It's not here are the verses to follow, but I think it sparks our imaginations and our curiosities. I think the fact that it speaks with different voices challenges us to process things and not just proof text and things like that. So those are very important things for me. I think I've been using language lately that differs a little bit from some of this stuff. And I like to think of the Bible as a means of grace. And that can be something for children, not just for adults, but a means of grace, sort of like baptism or Eucharist. You don't really know what's happening, but something's happening, right? It's out of control of your left brain, which for most of us is sort of an occupational hazard, I think. And I guess if you don't mind, if you'll indulge me for 1 minute, I want to illustrate this. All right. This is a picture of my 3 children a long time ago, about 31 years ago. This is my son in the middle and my daughters, Elizabeth and Sophie. And this is the one who is a subject of my story and God's stories. And, all families go through stuff, right? No family's perfect. All families have challenges. And you start wondering, did I do a good job parenting? All this kind of stuff. Maybe you've never felt this, but I certainly have. And I was reading one day, and I was reading in Ephesians in chapter 3, verse 14 and following, and I wrote that on the back because it became immediately meaningful to me in a way that I didn't expect. And just the first verse goes, "For this reason I bow my knees before the Father, from whom every family in heaven and earth takes its name." And I know when this writer, whoever wrote Ephesians, said, for this reason, he means the stuff he's just been talking about in the first 3 chapters, right? But for me, for this reason, no, this is the reason. It has nothing to do with what the writer said, right? Every family in heaven and earth takes its name. Well, I know obviously he's not talking about a nuclear family or some such nonsense like that. He's talking about families in terms of nations, but it doesn't matter to me because at a moment when, frankly, I needed to hear something, I needed to have some encouragement. It came to mind, and I just felt my entire feeble left brain just being bypassed completely to commune with God in a meaningful way through the text. And I think if we can prepare children and maybe even their parents a little bit to have that sense of freedom, that this is a text that can help, it is a pathway, it is a means of grace like baptism and Eucharist to help us commune with God. Sometimes you can go historical and geeky, but for most of the history of the church, that's not been it. That has not been how people have accessed the awareness of God in their midst. It's been done very differently. And I think this book, this children's Bible that we've worked on so hard, gets us there. I think it helps us instill that in children. We use other language like curiosity, for example, right? And just like what if, and I think those are beautiful traits to foster in children, and I think that's also a way to read the Bible that, at least for me, is very meaningful.
So good. I was just kidding about your 3 minutes too. I love listening to you, so you can jump in anytime. Have you seen a lot of resources like this? I mean, there's lots of kids' books, there's lots of kids' curriculum, but how would you, and Lauren, feel free to say this too. How would you say this is sort of unique? I mean, you already said some of that. I think the way that it's been curated with so many different voices and distinctive styles of writing. But anything else you want to say about?
Let me mention one thing, Lauren, then maybe if you jump in for the rest. It's, bringing the best of biblical scholarship. Obviously, we're not doing that with every sentence and every story in any sort of depth, but the very fact that we begin with the exile, that's the first story, shows that this book is written out of some sort of trauma, and trying to understand their own experience, their place in the world, their place of how they understand God in the world. And to me, that alone is worth the price of admission. To be able to think that way about the Bible, it doesn't start with Genesis. Genesis chapter 1's an afterthought. It's all the other stuff that went before it. And it's a book of people who are questioning their place in the world vis-a-vis the God of their tradition. And we're seeing those kinds of struggles come through in the text. And what a great Bible. It doesn't give all the answers. It illustrates something that's very important.
Yeah. Lauren, you got anything to add to that?
I mean, I think that was pretty
Sweet.
good.
Yeah, and as the bulk of our evening, y'all, is going to be here. This is kind of all the build up to hearing from all the different wonderful people on the screen here as they share a little bit of their contribution. But I thought I would just humor us with a little. If anybody has a story or a song from your childhood, if you grew up in sort of VBS or Sunday school or something, I'm going to tell you the one that is ingrained in my brain the most is did you all sing this one that goes, if I had an itty bitty box to put my Jesus in, I'd take him out and hug him tight and share him with a friend. And this is the terrible part though. If I had an itty bitty box to put the devil in, I'd take him out and stomp his face and put him back again. I was saying, we wonder why we have these anger issues, but that like we have all these songs, Father Abraham, all that. I have good memories, even though I feel like I learned the Bible through a certain lens. Most of my memories learning the Bible, people cared for me really well in the little church community I grew up in. I know that's not everybody's story, but anybody else have like anything you want to share about how you learned the Bible for better or worse, and maybe even how that motivated you to participate in this project? Just jump in or wave your
Well,
hand.
I could just say I
Yeah,
would like to thank
sure.
publicly God Almighty, the creator of the universe, for never subjecting me to vacation Bible school as a child or youth group or anything like that. So you think I'm screwed up now. If you can you imagine if I had been through all that stuff, what I'd be saying. So I don't know. I have so many students that have, and I can't really relate to those weird things they do in youth group. My kids at youth group, so I got it from them a little bit, but that didn't take with them. So
Hmm.
I'm no help here with this at all.
I did Bible drill. Did anybody else do Bible drill?
Oh,
Sword
mm.
drill?
We called it Bible drill. I
Okay.
don't know. I grew up in Texas, but yeah, it was like, competitive scripture searching. It in to the uninitiated, it sounds ridiculous, but I actually really loved it, and I'm grateful for it because it gave me like a foundation of, you know, um, being able to at least find some core verses in the Bible. It also gave me a familiarity with the books of the Bible. And it was just like a really positive experience with the Bible at a really formative age. I was probably like 9 or 10. So it's good.
Yeah.
Hmm.
Oh man, Rick just brought that one back in the chat there. I may never march in the infantry. Oh yeah. Oh, I'm not going to go on with that one. Yeah, the militant part. Oh, the militant part.
Well,
Jared,
Shane, I,
yeah,
I need to confess that I had to ask what Vacation Bible School was. Like
that's
we've
okay. This
got
is a safe
we've got
place.
lots of American stuff in Australia. We've got Coca-Cola and McDonald's and US military bases, like cultural imperialism. We've got lots of stuff, but we never got Vacation Bible School. So what comes to mind for me is I think civil disobedience and people power were directly connected because we got stories read by my dad as we went to sleep, and then it's time for prayers. And to delay the sleep time, to push it out, so would say, "Can we have a Bible story as well?" Because Dad wouldn't not give us a Bible story, and so for me, like the early experiments in people power were pushing out our bedtime through getting Bible stories, usually with one ear on Dad's chest as you can hear his heartbeat as he reads stories. So they're warm memories for me of like what it is to engage the scriptures and the cheekiness that came along with that as well.
Wow. And Shannon Evans said they had the Bible bee, which is like the spelling bee. I don't know, Shannon, is that like Nebuchadnezzar? You had to is that
No,
was it?
Brandon was telling me I did Bible drill. He did
Oh,
Bible B.
yeah.
And
Oh,
now I'm jealous and I want to know
Bible.
too.
Oh,
We're all on the edge of our seats. What is Bible B?
Did they like
yeah.
they read out a verse and you had to find it, right? Is that the deal?
That
That
was
was
my
the
Bible
drill.
drill.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that's the drill. But I think the Bible B might be like Nebuchadnezzar, and you had to be like, spell that sucker. I don't know. All right, we're gonna keep sharing as we go, but I'm so excited actually personally there's some friends on the screen and some new friends, and so this is going to be a lovely little chance to hear from the folks that crafted pieces of this project. Again, there's like over 50 folks that helped out, and we got a little roll call here. So I think Pete, you're actually going to start us out with days like these. The one where nothing really
Yeah, I'm
matters.
here. I'm
Yeah,
here.
cool, sweet. And then we're gonna
I
get
had a
to
problem. See this line in my face? I'm just going to leave it here because it
uh-huh.
looks like war paint
It
almost.
adds
But
character. Yeah,
it's the
totally.
line coming in from outside. I'll just try to avoid it. I'm facing my window, which is the only light I have here. So anyway, but
It's like a halo, only kind of
yeah.
crooked.
So
Yeah.
what do you want me to talk about my little thing that I wrote?
Yeah, so some people you can do whatever. This is fun. You can read
Hmm?
a piece of it, you can just talk about it, but we've got one, two, three, four, five. We got like 6 or 7 of us, so it's gonna be awesome. But yeah, take a few
Let
minutes
me
to
say a word
give us a
about
vibe
why
for it.
I
Yeah.
wanted to do Ecclesiastes, because it's been my favorite book of the Hebrew Bible for a long time, just because it's very honest, it's very raw, and I think it's something that people can relate to because he's not having a good day. He's complaining, and he basically says the world makes no sense, and God, you're the reason why. You're at fault in this. And sort of leaves it there, and he's never bailed out. Even at the end, he's not quite bailed out from that. And so I thought I wanted to try that. Say, how would I even possibly communicate this to children? And of course, you have to take maybe just a sliver of it. You can't do all of it, just like a little part of it. And the idea that you can be honest with God. And so I wrote about my grandchildren, Lila and Bo, and Lila had a very bad day at school, and nothing made sense, and she was angry, and everything's stupid and whatever. And so can I read a couple paragraphs from this then? Just all right. So anyway, so many people think that it is wrong to be mad at God, but Kohelet, the main character in the book, he didn't care. He just had all these feelings that he couldn't hold in anymore. He just wrote words and words about how nothing matters, and that it is God's fault for making a world where nothing makes sense. And then skipping a little bit to bringing it home to my grandkids. Kohelet was not happy at all. He was sad, mad, and probably scared. But he was not going to hold it in. He said what he was feeling, just like Lila did when she came home from school. Did you notice that neither Bo, that's her brother, or Lila's mother told her to stop crying? They let Lila show her feelings because they love her and care for her. God loves us and our feelings. God wants us to be honest and not feel like we have to pretend everything is okay when it's not. It is okay to be sad and mad, even with God. God does not want us to be fake. God understands and God cares for us. Some days we're happy. Some days we feel like nothing matters, no matter how hard we try. Both days matter to God. God cares for all of our days. That's about the best I could do, getting Ecclesiastes across a 7-year-old, but it's a valuable lesson, I think, for adults to learn, and I think for kids to learn that you just have to fake it. You just be who you are, and that's fun.
Boom, shakalaka. Cool. So as we go around, introduce yourself a little bit, but also feel free to show some pictures. So we'll go to, if there's a little section you want to hold up to the screen, you can do that. Tamice, good to see you leading the way. The one about John the Baptist is it's good to see you. Tell us a little bit about yourself.
Hey everybody, it's wonderful to be here. I'm very sleepy. My laptop is on 5%. I just got back from Kenya, literally. So I'm so excited to be on the call and a little bit sleepy too. But yeah, my story is for me was a reclamation of the John the Baptist story. I didn't do VBS, but I did do a long stint at an organization that was very much into memorizing and reading and singing scripture over and over. So I have a lot of memory of scripture, and I don't regret that time for that reason. But it felt important for me to talk about, similarly to what Pete is talking about the authenticity that I see in the story that I didn't see at first. So I'll read a little bit of it. This is Leading the Way. This is the John the Baptist story. Let me see if I can find the picture, but it's great illustration. And I'm going to skip ahead to kind of the part that I reclaimed. It says, now John's parents were pretty well known and respected. They had a lot of stuff and were considered important. And sometimes having a lot to lose can make us feel pressure not to rock the boat. But for John, it meant something altogether different. He saw that things in the world could be better, and he chose to show that by living differently. John lived in the wilderness where people like him don't normally live, and he ate things like locusts that people who come from families like his don't normally eat. He left all the fancy things behind and decided to be true to himself. That's a tough thing to do, especially when other people might not get it. They might think you're strange or make fun of you, but John knew that being true to what you believe is super important. It's okay to be different if you're doing what you feel is right. So I really appreciate John the Baptist's background and knowing a little bit about priestly families and how it must have been costly for him to choose the lifestyle he chose. And he chose it anyway because he knew something that other people didn't know. And that story is really obviously very, very special to me. So thanks for letting me share. It's an honor to be a part of this book with all of you.
Yeah, it's great. And feel free to jump back in anytime, if you want to respond to things that other folks contributed or people that are missing tonight. But thank you, especially for after all your travel, for joining in. Terry, rocking the Revelation thing. Tell us about it.
Hey everybody, my name is Terry Stokes. I'm really honored to be here. I come to you from Trenton, New Jersey, Central Jersey here, and about 45 minutes away from Philly. The story I contributed is on Revelation. I was really excited to see two stories from Revelation in this compilation. Part of the reason why I was excited to share this story is because in most of my Christian upbringing, we didn't really touch Revelation. I went to seminary, got my Master of Divinity. In my New Testament class, we did not touch Revelation. Some of y'all were talking about Bible memorization groups growing up. I was in a group called Awana. I don't know if anyone is familiar with Awana. Approved workers are not ashamed. So that is sort of like, I always describe it as the Christian Cub Scouts, where instead of getting a medal or a badge for learning how to tie a certain knot or learning how to start a fire, you get a badge for memorizing John 3:16. So from age 4 through age 18, I was part of that group. And again, I don't have any memory of touching Revelation across that entire time. So for me, Revelation was always kind of that scary text at the end of the Bible where it was always when it was touched on, it was presented to me as a sort of a crystal ball of like, oh, if you look into this and you look at it the right way, you can predict the future. And so getting further on in my journey with Christ, I started to encounter other ways of looking at this and other apocalyptic texts in Scripture, less as a way to see the future and if A, B, and C happen, then D is going to happen. It's the end of the world, and more in terms of this is sort of a secret code. And it's people who are being oppressed by empire writing against empire, but in a way that they won't get busted by empire if the letter that's being passed around falls into the wrong hands. So I was excited to present that to kids in the sense of, you all are familiar with writing notes, passing notes to friends in class. You're familiar with the idea of talking about someone who maybe is bullying you or someone who's mistreating you, and you have to kind of code your language in case you're passing the note throughout class and it falls into the bully's hands. And that's kind of what's happening in the book of Revelation. So I'll just share a couple of paragraphs from this. Many years passed, and those who knew and walked with Jesus began to grow old. Many had died, some of old age, but some well before their time, in not so comfortable ways. Jerusalem's beautiful temple had once again been destroyed, this time by Roman armies. And those who loved and followed Jesus began to wonder when he would return for them. They thought that he would go to heaven and be right back, but here they were many years later, still living under Rome, still suffering, still waiting, wondering where God was among all this pain. One of these followers was John. John lived on an island far from his friends. Perhaps he was sent there by the Roman emperor as a punishment for something he had done, or maybe he went there to share the good news of Jesus. We do not know why he was there, but we do know what happened to him while he was there. God gave John a dream, a vision actually, a revelation, a message from God. John saw a bunch of sights that were almost too incredible to put into words. Creatures stranger than the ones from any fairy tale, glimpses of heaven, even scary moments where God gets mad at injustice. Skipping ahead a little bit, the things in John's vision represented ideas and people and moments from the kingdom John lived in, his right now. In his vision, John saw 4 horses and their riders. There was a white horse and a black horse, but there was also a red horse and a pale green horse. The rider on the white horse carried a bow, like the Babylonian and Assyrian soldiers did when they tore through ancient Israel and Judah. The rider on the red horse carried a sword, like the Romans. The point of the 4 riders wasn't that they were actually 4 people riding horses. They were how John described poverty, war, suffering, and death. They came to earth to cause pain and disaster. They reminded John and us that when people have power, but they do not have kindness, they create an unjust world where most people don't have what they need. It's a lovely illustration here.
Yeah. Lots of bad books on Revelation, but we got a good one now. That's great. Yeah. Great.
I love that,
Yeah.
Terry. Power without kindness. That's somewhat relevant.
Mm.
Oof.
Mm. Let's see. We got Brian. Tell us a little bit about you, Brian, and how you contributed to this thing, this holy project.
Hey, yeah, so like Jared, I'll probably just put my starting point was I was trying to figure out what VBS meant as well. I thought it was some sort of boy band that I must have missed during my childhood. But yeah, so I'm a diasporic person. So my background is Samoan. I'm from Samoa. I currently live in Samoa, but I spent a lot of my childhood in those space in Australia. As I was born and raised in Australia, but I was constantly moving, and I felt that being part of this project, I think that some of that uh, I really believe that the Bible is a lot of it, in fact, is about movement, about migration, and about trying to exist in different spaces. And so, like, I felt that when I was a kid growing up in Sunday school, there wasn't real emphasis on migration, and as a result, I sort of felt disconnected in a lot of ways. And growing up, that disconnection became even more profound, given that, here we have a text that speaks about the experiences of the people of Israel, in the Old Testament. And a lot of that were particular to trying to live a good life, be a good person. But none of what I was taught in Bible school, in Sunday school as well, tried to deal with the difficulty of existence and living in spaces, which ironically I found was everywhere in the Hebrew Bible, in the Old Testament. And so, I mean, I'm with Pete. I think that Ecclesiastes, sort of the book that I found that provided me a lot of solace growing up. And hence why I wrote my PhD in Ecclesiastes. So I was kind of upset a bit in a way when I found out from Lauren that Pete took the Ecclesiastes part of the project. So
You could have
I was
bought
like,
me out. You could have bought me out easily. I would have been happy with it.
I was like, what else is there to write for me then?
Yeah, literally.
But I feel a particular connection to the story of Daniel. And that was my contribution to the project. So I just want to read just a short brief there. I mean, we're all familiar with the story, but this part that I wrote, sort of resonates with what I'm going through as well. And it reads: Daniel knew of this law about the worshiping the emperor, the King Darius. But rather than hide in his room and pray to God, he opened his windows so that everyone could see him pray. And they did. The officials who created the law told King Darius about Daniel. This made King Darius really sad because he liked Daniel. But the law said he had to throw his friend Daniel inside the den with the hungry lions. And in those days, a law that was signed by the king could not be changed. And why that resonates with me is because it sort of reflects the struggle of people in migration, diasporic people in particular, in my case, because of our conflict with foreign laws and different cultures that we mingle with. And that whole experience can be quite turbulent and quite scary for us. And so trying to navigate those spaces, I felt that Daniel was in a similar precarious position. And so, trying to get that out in storytelling, I think was a big part of my inspiration for joining the project, because I felt that wasn't really communicated to me as a kid. And I think kids need to know these things. They need to know the realities. And like Pete said, we need to start from, what I feel we need to start from that place of trauma, in order to understand where the Bible came from. And so trying to communicate that to our children I think is probably a more fruitful way and more honest way in trying to learn the Bible while growing up. So yeah, that's my sort of contribution to the project. So yeah, thanks.
Thank you. Thanks for sharing so personally too. It gives a little dimension and depth to what you wrote. So appreciate you so much, Brian. We got a couple more, and if y'all are just joining, we're talking about this really wonderful resource for children, young and old. It's God's stories. Somebody hold it up there. I mentioned early on I gave all my copies away. So yeah, there it is. So God's stories is told by God's children, and some of those storytellers, a bunch of them we've got on here tonight. We're going to hear from just a few more, and then we're going to give away a couple books. So, okay, I know you are being a little shy. By the way, there's folks listening in France and Alabama. Got Reverend Richard down in Charlotte. We got all kinds of friends on here, Sister Julia, that are joining, and we're giving away 2 books. So we might give away more. Look, y'all, it's easy. It's going to be easy to convince us to send you a copy. So if you've got a birthday this week, just tell us. I'm trying to keep you from having to write your personal information in the chats, but just tell us if you got a birthday coming up. If you brought your little people on the screen tonight and you've got a couple of kids with you watching, tell us. We'll send a bunch of books out and to you. We'll get all that information easy enough. So Shannon, welcome baby Jesus. Tell us about it.
Okay, yeah. So the nativity story is always what I flip to first in the Bible. And I just love it. I've loved it ever since I was a kid. And I have 5 kids. My youngest ones are like 5, 7, and 9. And so they're still kind of in the age where they really like picture Bibles. And my youngest, my daughter, the 5-year-old, really loves the baby Jesus story. So when I got that one, I was like, yes, they're gonna actually like the story that I write. But I think that part of the reason that this one really attracts children is because that they really, much more than adults do, understand the awe of, wait, this is God and this is a baby. Like it blows their little minds and they love it and they want to hear about it. And I feel like with adults, it's just such old news that we're not so impressed with it anymore. But so I really wanted to take that sort of incarnational theology and really just make it come to life in a way that that children can see, in front of them. Like most children have access to looking at a baby, whether it's a sibling or a cousin or, friends at church or whatnot. And so I just really kind of wanted to flesh that out and make it feel real and make it feel relatable. And in doing so, trusting that also creates more of the sense of awe and wonder that is naturally there. So I'm going to read an excerpt kind of right smack in the middle of my story. I don't have my copy with me because I'm not at home, but I am going to read it. Soon it was time. Joseph, perhaps helped by the women of the home they were staying in, made the space clean and comfortable. When Mary birthed Jesus into the world, a sacred feeling came upon the room. Emmanuel, she whispered, God is with us. Mary swaddled Jesus in blankets and kissed his nose. When he cried, she fed him her milk. When he pooped, she changed his wraps. When he fell asleep, she handed him to Joseph, who paced back and forth with the baby in his arms, humming softly. Emmanuel, Joseph sang, God is with us. Then Joseph laid baby Jesus down in the manger, and the new parents closed their eyes for some well-deserved rest.
So good. And as you were writing all of this, did you was there anything that surprised you as you were reflecting on the something that was real familiar to you, the birth story?
Yes, yeah, it was really interesting to look into the historical part of the truth, because so often we kind of revert to what we've always been told about, born in a stable with nobody around, is just Joseph delivering this baby. And so it was kind of neat to really dive into that and to learn that it was probably not as stable as we think of it, but more of a guest room of a house that would be not as nice, but not, hay on the floor, maybe. Not with donkeys right over their shoulder, things like that. And yes, there probably would have been midwives, or at least women who were available to assist the birth. Joseph wasn't just on his own there. So things like that was like, I had been exposed to, but it was interesting to kind of try to to put that into a children's story. Made me realize how little history we really rely on when we tell stories to children, and that they really deserve to have the facts. So that was a pleasant surprise.
So good. I've got some folks can see the Christ and the Rebel icon. We've got the original painting over here that Kelly Lattimore did. And I was thinking about that as you were sharing, Shannon. My little boy, he's 1.5, and almost every morning he waves at the Holy Family and blows them a little
beautiful
kiss. So
That's so sweet.
yeah, but thank you for that. Awesome. I'll give another time at the end, by the way, just for folks to share anything you learned as you were writing or listening to others. But Marlena, good to see you. We were together not too long ago. Good to see you, and excited to hear from you.
Thank you so much, Shane. I'm glad to be with all of you. And what an honor to be here. I'm in Rochester, New York. I'm a professor, assistant professor of spiritual formation at Northeastern Seminary on the campus of Roberts Wesleyan. And I wrote about Jesus washing his disciples' feet in the upper room. And I didn't go to VBS when I was little. I was born in Puerto Rico, but I grew up in a rural area of Pennsylvania. I share some commonality with Shane, as growing up area. But I would watch my abuela, who lived with us, who had a 3rd grade education because her mother died when she was 8 years old, and her 10 brothers and sisters had to go to work in Puerto Rico to earn money. I would see her sounding out scripture in Spanish, and I thought to myself, well, if abuela reads the Bible, I should read the Bible, because I love abuela so much and I want to be like her. And so I would from the ages of 10 to 14, I'd read the Bible 2 to 4 hours a day after I was done with school and work. And part of that happened because I lived in a rural area. I lived long distance, which they used to have from friends. I couldn't call people on the phone. And I really believed that God cared about me and spoke to me and was close to me. And I think my first Bible was like a King James version, or New King James Version, which was hard for me to understand. But so I think the Bible just formed my imagination. And I didn't realize that at the time, but I can say that now. And the other thing I wanted to say is, when I would be reading, not just Lauren, but the rest of you will probably be able to identify with this. But when I was reading the Bible, I have 3 girls who are now 18, 13, and almost 11. But when my daughters were little, there's 2 things they said to me with some of the Bibles that we would pick up. One is like, why is it always a story about guys? The Bible. Why is it always about men? And why is there always like picture of white people? And I did not feed them that. They picked up on that themselves, based on what we had. So for me, it was so exciting to be able to contribute to the project. And I'll just read you a little bit about mine. I think I can share this, because I also gave mine away to people. Can you guys see that?
Yeah.
Okay. So I'll just move this, and I have to say, I love the artwork, all the different artists. Thank you so much, you all, for doing this, because it's so beautiful. Cheryl Sini's work is great. All right. So before Jesus died, he and his disciples had one last dinner. That night, Jesus did something his disciple considered rather strange at the time, and maybe you would consider it strange too. Jesus took off his outer robe so as not to get it dirty, grabbed a towel and a bowl of water, bent down, and began washing his disciples' dirty, stinky feet. Have you ever gotten a whiff of someone's smelly feet? Maybe they had socks on and their feet began to sweat so much that their feet emitted the putrid vinegar-like smell of stinky soccer socks and shoes. Have you had a friend or sibling, like I did, stick their stinky feet or socks in your face? Yuck. Maybe you went outside barefoot to play or do chores just to return with your feet caked in mud or worse. Maybe your parent or guardian snapped. Don't walk here with your muddy feet. Don't bring mud into the house. And so that's how I start out talking about the disciples and then going into how Jesus, I was always fascinated and I felt I could identify with Jesus being poor, but also the God of the universe. And I would like, why would the God of the universe clean someone's feet? And so that always astounded me. So I was glad to be able to write about it. And finally, I'll just say, just this book offers something. And I know Camille and you all brought it forth that the Bibles that I've seen have not. So I'm so grateful for it. Thank you.
Awesome. So fun. And you did it. You went over the top with the screen share. I'm a little intimidated by the screen shares. It was really beautiful to see that. And thanks for giving us a glimpse. There's pictures all through it. And if you missed the first part of this, by all kinds of different artists with different styles. So yeah, it was such a great collaboration. And before I get to Jared, Lauren, what Camille that helped start a lot of this? You mentioned her in the beginning, and I mean,
Yeah.
what role has she continued to play? Because I sort of lost touch with her a little bit, but you kind of took some of the idea and helped to shape it. But are we still in touch with her and everything?
Definitely, yes. In fact, I believe she's in Paris right now, but she was a sounding board through the whole project. She was fantastic. We like worked through the illustrations together. We worked through the author list together. She's been absolutely brilliant through this entire thing. And for anyone who's interested, she wrote the story What Kind of Man? So the Jesus walking on water story. So if you want to hear a bit more about her, that's a great place to get a sense of her heart for these stories in this book.
So good. I mean, it really is, when she first pitched this idea, I loved it and also thought, whoa, how in the world would we pull something together like that? So she and you and Pete and really everybody pulling their gifts together made this happen. So it's just wonderful to see it. It just came out couple months ago, y'all. It's really getting out in bookstores and everything. So make sure you share it with everybody, and we'll soon try to have copies available in our bookstores and stuff like that. We just opened a little library here in Philly, y'all, so we're going to have it in there. Jared,
Hey,
I
mate.
mean, you actually, I think, introduced me to Lauren too, and we worked together on the Advent project with Palestinian theologians, and then this project. And it's always good to see you, buddy. And you've got some little people that you're raising up and wanting them to hear the stories of the Lord. So talk about what this project's meant to you, man, and what you
Oh,
wrote.
thanks, Shane. Yeah, I try and introduce people to Jesus and Lauren. Like that's kind of my vocation. That's what I do.
Well, I'm
Um,
sure glad. Yeah, it's been
Yeah,
awesome.
for both, right? For both. Yeah, I do have little people. They are currently sleeping. It's dark outside, so the sun hasn't risen in well, where am I? I'm on Wajik Noongar Budja, which you'll find on most maps as Perth, Western Australia. If there are little ones, if you're watching with your parents, try and find Perth on a map. Pull out a globe or atlas, try and find Perth. Go to Sydney and then go to the other side. I'm really pleased to be in this space. This is actually, despite the fact that Brian and I are on the same continent and sometimes on the same circle, this is us meeting for the first time. And it's true of Sharon as well and of Terry. And then there's people that's really dear to me, like Marlena, who haven't seen forever, but also like Tamice. I can't wait to hear about Kenya. And I just want to acknowledge that Ellison, her beloved, is on here as well. And it's always great hanging out with Pete. So thanks for Red Letter Christians bringing this together. This is beautiful. In terms of the story that I got, I was given a story. Much like when Jesus tells me to do something, when Lauren tells me to do something, I try and do it. So I was given what's sometimes referred to as the triumphal entry. Um, and I said, can we also do Jesus getting into good trouble in the temple as well? And as you mentioned, Shane, I do have little ones. There's sleeping downstairs, little Goth Oscar, named for Oscar Romero, and there's little Noah Otis, named for Otis Moss Jr. and the third, but also Noah. Like raising kids during an ecological crisis, there are all kinds of things that kids might not be able to articulate but feel, right? What's going on at the moment that in your part of the world, just south of Canada and north of Mexico, that kids are going to school and they're in primary school, elementary school, and they're not sure where their beloved friends or them themselves might get a knock on the door, and the school faces the options of, are we going to hide this little one, or are they going to go elsewhere because of their vulnerability in your society? And I think kids know this and they feel this. And the question is, what do we do with these big feelings? And sometimes we read the stories of Jesus coming in on a donkey, and it's separated from the big feelings that his people had living under the imperial colonization that they were experiencing. And then we get to the story of Jesus in the temple, and it's like Jesus lost it. He just had a bad day. He flew off the hook. And in fact, Mark's gospel was really clear that, to use the words of our mate and mentor Ched Myers, Jesus goes in and he cases the joint. This is planned. He's there the night before. He's checking everything out. He's coming back with a plan. And so I wanted to capture for little people, what do you do with these big feelings? How do you bring them before the Lord and allow the Holy Spirit to take them and add like sanctified creativity and the kind of prophetic imagination, as our late friend Walter Brueggemann would have said, and do something that is beautiful and brave and full of courage with others, and how Jesus shows us how to do that. So, with your permission, despite the fact that I'm thoroughly dyslexic, so Sharon, when there was talk of like Bible bees, I mean, I wouldn't be a Christian if I was in a situation where they were making me spell Nebuchadnezzar, Shane. That's terrifying for me. But I will try and read aloud as a way of doing therapy without paying for it. So here's a little bit of a funny kind of king, which was illustrated by Ollie Davis, and it's absolutely exquisite. I don't know if you can see. I'm so pleased with how this came out, and I'll show you on the next page when we get to it. I love the attention and that Ollie we're able to discuss around how Jesus treats the animals, and that's really important to me and really important to my little ones as well. So I'll show you that when we get to it. I'll just pick it up halfway through. From the west, Caesar's representative, Pilate, rode into Jerusalem with what must have looked like a sea of soldiers on powerful war horses, like Pharaoh's army that chased Moses and Miriam and all those enslaved in Egypt. Here was unbeatable might. Here was the glory of the world's most powerful king, shining swords and shields, a dust cloud of fearsome warriors marching to the drums of war, reminding every worshipper in the temple one thing: Caesar is Lord, the world's true king, and Rome brings peace, albeit through a sword. So, what did Jesus do with those big feelings? As he wept over the city in prayer, he hatched a plan. Jesus told his disciples to go into a village, find a donkey. Then Jesus said, if anyone asks, why are you taking the little donkey? Just tell them the Lord needs it and will bring it back. Can you see the surprise on their faces? Can you hear them thinking, which Lord? Not Caesar. Wait, does he mean God's true king? Is it like the prophet Zechariah's poem? Rejoice greatly, O daughter of Zion. Shout, daughter of Jerusalem. See your king come to you, just and bringing liberation, non-violent and riding on a donkey, on a colt, on the foal of a donkey. So the disciples brought a little donkey to Jesus and rode in from the east towards Jerusalem. Jesus was making fun of the rulers and their war horses and their empires built on violence, showing the crowd that God's kingdom or kingdom is nothing like that. And everyone got Jesus's joke straight away. People took off their cloaks and they spread them on the ground with palm branches, laying them before the donkey. And they sang out, "Deliver us. Blessed is he who comes in the name of the Lord. Blessed is the coming kingdom of our ancestor David. Hosanna to God in the highest." Jesus is a funny kind of king, but Jesus was only getting started. As he entered Jerusalem, he went to the temple and he cased the joint. Then he and the 12 disciples went back to Bethany to pray. The next morning, Jesus messed up the temple with a protest that disturbed everything but hurt no one. Tables were flipped. Doves went flying. The animals were there to be killed. They went off running to safety. Those doing the buying and selling, they ran off as well. Then Jesus addressed the crowd using the poetry of his ancestors. "My house will be called a house of prayer for all people. Yet you have made it a den for those who steal and then go to worship to hide." It was at this point that those who thought Jesus was a threat thought something has to be done. They weren't laughing at this funny kind of king, a king who disturbs the peace and tells the truth and saves on a donkey, never a war horse. Friends, they weren't laughing at all. And check out this depiction of our Lord with all the animals huddled around him for safety. I love it. So I'm so honored to be a part of this with such a wonderful group of people. And I've given away all but this copy. So I'm so pleased to be involved in this. Thanks. I'm
Thanks for
happy to be
sharing,
hanging
bro.
out with you lot.
So good. And I'm so grateful for everybody sharing what you wrote and a little bit about yourselves as well. I did a little piece as well with the Good Samaritan, which what is it? The spoiler alert, it may or may not have a televangelist and a seminary professor. Sorry, Pete Enns, and that I was thinking of the salt on the earth, and I was talking to some kids, and we called it the sprinkles on the ice cream. I tried to get in there. Stanley Hauerwas said that it's the air freshener in the toilet, but that might have been a little much. But anyway, yeah, that's just great to think about it, y'all. And we got folks listening from all over the place. Helen's in Scotland, Tim's in Canada listening in, or as we call it here, the 51st state. But just kidding. But we're really grateful for everybody tuning in. Spread the word. God's stories as told by God's children. Pete, I want to come to you well, first of all, anybody want to share anything before Pete sends us out of just like as you've listened to each other, as you kind of flip through it with friends? Oh, and we're giving one away. Sharon Risher, you got a copy coming to you. Happy birthday next week. And Ellison, I didn't know that we had a conflict of interest, but it's all good. We'll send you. But honestly, if you want a copy, just send us an email. We'll probably we'll get a pile of them here and send them out. But anybody want to share anything else before Pete sends us out here? Thanks for
Just
carving
so
out
good.
time,
It's just
Marlena.
so good. I wanted to say it's just so good.
Yeah, I just have to ditto that. I've got, and mentioned in the chat, I've got a 7-year-old and an 8-month-old, and we haven't known what to tell them, what to give them, because we are refusing to give them toxicity. So this, the way that the Bible for Normal People has impacted my life, and to be a part of the something that was done for children, it's a huge honor. So thank you.
Can I just add that? Oh, you go, Lauren. You go. I was going to share about you actually, Lauren.
Stop.
Okay, you do it. On Sunday, not just for little kids, but for big kids as well. Lauren actually read in worship the Damascus Road story. So I encourage you, like in worship as well. Some of us are from traditions where there's a kids bit in the service, maybe before Sunday school or before kids activities. This is a great worship resource within worship, and you've experienced here just online the power of what it is to like read stories together. And as Pete was saying, for it to be this imaginative process that engages different parts of us. So whether it's like bedtime with beloved little ones or big ones, or whether it's in community together, some of my encouragement is like we've got to create spaces, imaginative spaces, to enter into the stories in such ways that it opens us up instead of closes questions down. So I'm appreciative for this space to do that together and make some new friends and see some old friends. But let's work particularly at this moment. Shane, I know you just got out of jail. We need people going in and coming out in such ways that there are communities of imaginative spaces where kids can look at people and go, Uncle Shane is doing this, and I might not be able to do what Uncle Shane's doing, but I can be a part of a community where we're reading these stories imaginatively together. So my compassion deepens, my grief is expressed, and a joy can actually arise in the midst of like that lament that actually leads to hopeful action. So I'm thankful for you all, and I'm hoping that my prayer is that this will be a resource for communities creating those kind of imaginative spaces.
So
Can I
good.
just,
That was real helpful. Yeah, I think even the idea, Brian, we'll come to you and just say, yeah, the idea of like using it in the service. Maybe you make a video if you want to read. We don't have any copyright stuff. If you want to read it and post a video of you reading to your kids and tag us on it or something, like let's just get it out there, y'all. So awesome. Brian, yeah, man.
Yeah, no, sorry. I was just like and I guess what Jared said is sort of a segue for what I wanted to say briefly. In the spirit of the Tower of Babel, maybe we can sort of also, permission granted from the publishers and all that, to translate this into other languages as well.
So great,
Become
Brian.
available to other cultures. Like I'd be keen to translate it into Samoan, and probably
So
be some
great.
that we could have a good word about.
I'd be keen to have you do that, Brian. Just from an editorial perspective, I just wanted to sort of jump in and say one of our big things is that many voices are needed to tell God's stories. And I hope from today, and I hope from reading this book and the way that we've preserved each of the voices in the story, that kids have a sense that they can then add their voices to these stories. So that is what I would really hope from children reading this book, is that they can hear all of these voices in conversation with one another, and then they feel encouraged and invited to add their own voices to that. And I hope that that is the gift that this book will give to little ones and their families and their big people.
So good. Awesome. Tamice and Terry, Shannon, Marlena, Jared, Brian, Lauren, awesome. And all the others that couldn't make it tonight, but they contributed. Over 50 folks have their fingerprints on this wonderful project. So keep sharing it, y'all. Pete, send us out, brother.
Okay, well, let me say this. As this project was taking shape, I turned to Jared, I said, this is going to be the most significant thing we ever do as an organization. And I truly believe that. And I want us all to take heart and be encouraged by that. And most important, doesn't mean, it'll be a documentary on Netflix or something, but it's something that affects people. And if we can help give young people and another generation a good Jesus and a good faith, that's a life well lived, I think. So so I'm proud, as you are too, to be a part of something like this.
Awesome. What a great night, y'all. Thanks for carving out time. We're scattered all over the globe, so grateful for you all. We'll keep getting the word out there. Thanks for joining, y'all. And again, tomorrow morning, 9 a.m. Eastern time, we have morning prayer. So I'll see some of you then. But thanks for this special night, and grateful for all of you. Good night.
See you, folks.